seventh, or not if you the numbering system will be different, but it'll open up the lowest chakra pertaining to sex and reproduction. Okay? Now this is part of meditation, sir. You sit cross-legged eventually in lotus position, and when that muscle structure, the piriformis, is stretched out properly, then this will open up and help to heal that bottom chakra. David?
Where can we get information on the other positions for the different endocrine glands?
We'll be teaching this as we go along, sir. That hasn't been written yet, to my knowledge.
I've always centered on the third eye. I never centered on the first chakra when I've been meditating. And then what eventually does happen is there's this tremendous energy which goes up the spine, and you have the experience of the white light, which is more beautiful than you can ever imagine.
What happens when you focus on the white light?
Yeah, you become one with it.
But what happens when you really focus on the white light? Disappears completely. Because you're now focusing on the outer, and you're not allowing to receive it. You follow what I'm saying? Once you focus on a manifestation that comes to you through meditation, it just goes poof, it's gone. Because now you're focusing on something to the exclusion of, rather than working to the encompassment of all things, which the white light is the all-encompassment. So when that white light comes into your vision, you focus on it, it's gone. So you have to learn to let it come in and to be there and just be nourished by that. And that then helps you to literally focus your attention on not focusing your attention. You follow what I'm saying? Okay. And this is different because we're not focusing on the outer, like seeing is believing type of thing. We're looking at this believing is seeing, and we're seeing while we're not focusing on what we're seeing. It's that simple. Let me say that again. You're seeing without focusing on what you're seeing. The thought is a process of non-thought. And you have to reach that point of encompassment to understand what I'm saying here. Because you're encompassing duality when you're hitting the epitome of your meditative thought. Doug, anything you want to say, sir?
Well, over and over again, when we look at this concept or pretty much anything else, we always come down to the difference between learning to focus our attention to the encompassment of everything that's there versus simply focusing our attention to the exclusion of everything else. And
say that again.
The thing that we always come down to is the difference between being able to focus one's attention on something while simultaneously encompassing everything else, which leads to an expansion of awareness, versus simply focusing one's attention on one thing to the exclusion of everything else, which is what most meditative techniques actually end up doing, which leads to a tremendous contraction of awareness and is actually involutionary by nature.
Repeat that, please.
Most people are very, very linear in their thinking, at best. And so the moment they focus their attention on one thing, it's the nature of their programming that if they focus on one thing, they will focus on that one thing to the exclusion of everything else. So what actually happens is they contract their own awareness and they become hypnotized by whatever they're focusing their attention upon. And this is actually completely involutionary in nature. It's bringing about a tremendous contraction of awareness. This is the trap that a lot of people run into in meditation. And this is the trap of a lot of meditative techniques where they're really actually very deliberately teaching people to focus on one thing to the exclusion of everything else. And one is considered to be very successful in this type of meditative technique if one can do just that. What one has actually done to oneself is one has hypnotized oneself. One has greatly contracted or diminished one's own awareness. Focusing to the exclusion of everything else is involutionary unless one can first learn to focus to the encompassment of everything else, which is where you can expand your awareness and be aware of many, many things simultaneously. Once you've mastered that, you've then become hologramic in your thinking. You're no longer linear. And as a result of that ability to be hologramic, to encompass many things simultaneously, you're now able to employ the correct use of focusing your attention to the exclusion of everything, because you're able to now do it within a broader framework of simultaneous encompassment and non-resistance. So basically what's happening for a lot of people is they're learning to do something prematurely. They're learning to do something that they're not yet ready to do, which is focusing their attention to the exclusion. You have to be able to encompass from a standpoint of non-resistance before the narrowed or focused attention or exclusive attention will eventually become appropriate for you. And then in that case, it will actually be uplifting.
This is important. When you're focusing to the exclusion, and like you're focusing on one particular spot, to the exclusion of all else, this contracts your thinking in, as Doug said correctly, in an involutionary manner, which puts you into a oneness with matter. And this is where a lot of chanting will take you into this oneness with matter, where you're hypnotized by the environment, and you literally go into a hypnotic state, which is destructive to the soul. Chanting, when done properly to the expansion of the awareness, is directly to the contrary. So every chanting problem here that we have will be like a two-edged sword. If used properly, it will expand the attention and awareness of the individual, where the person from a position from within his own body can be everywhere, every when. And the universal knowledge opens up just like a flood of books simultaneously. All right? But if you're focusing to the exclusion of, this is putting you through a rite of passage which opens up the holes in your auric field that will leave you wide open to demonic possession, if I can use that word. Let's put that into other words. It's where you're taken over by what are called evil spirits. It's where you're taken over by what some people call demons. It's taken over by forces outside of yourself that do not have a body themselves but want a body to play with. And if you leave holes open in your auric field, and this can be done in a variety of manners, then you leave yourself open for this type of possession. I read a beautiful book. I read an absolute beautiful book the other day that somebody gave Anita. And I looked through here and I said, oh, how beautiful this is. Oh, how beautiful this is. Oh, how beautiful this is. And all this, finally, the explanation was, all of this was coming through the Brotherhood in automatic writing, where the person was taken over and they were automatically writing. And then finally, the last little bit says, and it was said very sarcastically, it says, there are no dark forces. All forces are God forces, and there are no dark forces. And let me say this to you. There is opposition in all things when you're within the realms of the physical environment, the physical universe. You're going to have forces for good, and you're going to have forces for bad. And if a person does not believe in the forces of darkness, and they train themselves into mediumship, where they become a channel for these forces of darkness, then they can be deceived. And this is where much of your mediumship isn't worth the powder to blow it up. Okay? Because the mediumship coming through and all this channeling coming through, no matter how beautiful it'll appear to you, when you study through, you'll find 90% truth and then they'll slip in a 10% lie, which if you follow it, will take you right down the primrose path. Okay? Now this is a thought for you. The ascended masters do not come through a channel. If they want to talk to you, they come to you face and face with a body of flesh and bone, and they talk to you, and they tell you what they want you to know, and they go. Now, I have had this experience. If a person comes to you, you offer them their hand, like this. Now, this is my experience, and this is the instructions I have been given in this area. You take their hand. If they can take your hand and it's a body of flesh and bone, you better listen, especially when they appear to you. But if you offer their hand and they're coming from the dark side, your hand will just move right through them like a cold wind. And they'll be as real as Doug stands or sits here by me. They're as real as this right here, until you touch them and your hand goes right through them and there's nobody there. Now this is where that many times people are deceived, because they don't give a test by one of the most important keys you can use, by offering a handshake. You're not offending anybody. If they shake hands, you better listen to what they have to say. Okay? Now, there's other cases where through materializing mediumship, you've had people in deep trances where from the navel comes this flow of ectoplasm out maybe 30, 40 feet, and it comes to a person who looks as solid as Doug and is as solid as Doug, except they're tied into what we call a materializing medium. And this gets into some very dark material here, because the teachings there will also lead you down the primrose path. Because even though there's a tremendous outer manifestation, the teachings are false. Now this is where you're getting very close to sorcery, black magic, and other things where these things appear. Now you better be aware of these things, because if you're involved in light work, which is freeing mankind from the fetters of yesteryears, so that they have the freedom to move into a new realm of light-bearing truth, you're freeing them from their sicknesses and illnesses. You're freeing people from their angers and frustrations, from their resistances and falsehoods, and you're setting the people free to where they can be. Then you are going to be the target in one form or another of sorcery, because you're going to upset the dark forces, and they're going to hit you any way they can. And it can be a very subtle, very powerful, and a very disruptive, but very educational experience when you realize that the forces of darkness are very, very real and come in a variety of forms. Esther, you have something you want to share from your experience? No, we'll take Doug first.
Well, in terms of what John's saying, were these various keys, there's also a third possibility that we should cover here. The first possibility, when you see a being appear to you, is that it is an actual ascended master, in which case you will actually be able to shake the hand, as John's demonstrated. It's a hand of flesh and blood. They will gladly shake your hand, no problem. You can touch them, and it's very real and tangible. The second case is where it is something from the dark forces. They will attempt to deceive you. In other words, they will actually attempt to shake your hand, but there'll be nothing there. There'll be nothing there. There is also a third possibility, which is where what you have is an angel that has appeared simply to deliver a message. And in this third case, they will not shake your hand.
They refuse to shake
They will
your hand.
refuse to shake your hand. They will simply deliver their message and then leave. In that case, you can believe the message just as surely as if it had been the first case where it was an ascended master.
That's correct. And then in all cases, you offer your hand, because there will be people who will come to you, and you offer your hand to them. That will not be an insult. This is the way to discern between anybody who would try to deceive you versus a true master or angel. Thank you, Doug, very much, sir. Any questions on this? Esther, you have something you want to share. Please come up and do so.
what I've also discovered is that that has been beneficial is that before I do my meditation, I always put on the tube of light.
Thank you.
I think you better do.
Tube of light. Okay. Well, the tube of light is. This is in the I Am teachings, and this is where you visualize a tube of white light just surrounding your whole body, going up to the God presence. The best thing to do would be to get the picture from the Saint Germain Press, so you have a clear visualization of what this is.
And to study the Saint Germain works. Our job is not to teach those things. That's already in the books. Our job here is simply to point the way to these teachings that you can learn from that go far beyond the teachings of body electronics. Is that clear? Okay. Yes, sir.
John, in the teachings of the Kriya lineage, they say that there's 49 different types of breath, and therefrom comes 49 different emotions. Does that sort of equal out with your 7 and 7?
I think that would be very accurate, sir. But I'm not aware of that because I'm not into Kriya Yoga. I'm into my own meditation, my own way, because it has not failed me in the past. It has given me the information that I have needed through my own unique method of traditional prayer and my own unique method of traditional decree. I'm not a loner. But the thing is I have a tendency that if it works, don't desert it. And this is where I have been very happy with the techniques that I have used over the years that have been very good to me. And I haven't found anything which would discredit them or invalidate them. But I'm just sharing you what I know and what's been given to me, and you will have many different people will give you what they are using and what they're teaching, which will not be in any way contrary to what other teachings will be. The thing is to learn to incorporate the teaching, all of the teachings, and not to get hung up on saying it has to be this way, just like you have all the infighting in the Christian religions today. If you don't use the right words, and if you don't bow the right way or use the right cross, then you're condemned forever. Okay? Let's not get ourselves in that position. Let's incorporate and unify rather than to divide and destroy. Yes, sir, Wolf.
Just a very quick question. I've been doing TM for about 2 years now, but I don't know anything else about other meditations. I mean, just a little practical advice, like, for example, I mean, do you focus on what do you focus on, for example, if you do something else?
Okay, now what did the Maharishi teach?
Well, I mean...
after a while,
yes,
you get that burning, searing pain through the body. Is that correct?
that's right.
And after you get through that burning, searing pain, then you have like a current of vibration or energy going through the body. Is that correct?
That's the idea, yeah.
Do you know anybody who has achieved that?
No.
That's right. But this is what the Maharishi teaches. It's no different than what you have in the I Am work. It's no different than what you have in body electronics. And basically, it's no different than what you have in Kriya Yoga. But the Maharishi, who has been battered and battered around by a lot of people, is teaching true principle. And what he has taught in transcendental meditation is right on. But nobody understands what he's been trying to teach for years. They reach a certain point in their progression, and they can't go beyond that because they cannot apply what to the Maharishi is extremely simple.
That's right, but I mean, still, if I want to do some different meditation you're talking about, you know, I don't really know what to do. I mean, do you focus on anything in particular, or sort of, I mean, you know what? Or do you just let go and just sort of relax, or?
I'll let Anita answer that.
Okay, thank you very much.
But you understand, the Maharishi taught truth, but there are very few of his followers who know what he was teaching, because they haven't experienced it. Okay.
I think the best thing at this moment is for you, if you want to get involved in another meditation, is to write to the Self-Realization Fellowship, because I don't want to go into it in part here. I mean, all these people may not be interested in what you're interested in. And like John said, we are here to point the way. And it's a tremendous learning experience. I mean, it's not something I can just tell you in 5 minutes, you know. So, yeah. Ian, now what are we up to?
Covered meditation.
Yes.
Now, decreeing.
It's called meditation.
Prayer and, I mean, I grew up with the traditional prayer thing of, you know, can't even remember it, was it? But prayer and decree, can we just have some examples of something I must have? I went there.
Prayer is...
There are those people that come down through the Babaji line, which are different than the Lahari Manaseya's group. There are people that come down through Lahari Manaseya's and his initiations that are not part of Sri Yukteswar's work. There are those that come down through Sri Yukteswar's work, which are not the Yogananda. And all of these people have, not all, but the organizational aspect, are all fighting for a position where they won't honor somebody else because they're not doing it right. Okay? And you have a lot of infighting, which is totally unnecessary, because the truth is in all of them, but they use a little different approach in a little different way, but because they don't cross the T's right and they don't dot the I's right, therefore they contend with one another, which is a human notion. I say to you, let's be healers and uniters rather than dividers and destroyers. Of all these people, they all have truth. But don't contend one with another, and don't divide. Incorporate and unify in all things. I want to say that because it's so important. You're going to find a lot of yoga groups out there that have truth, and they have proper teachings, and there's different pathways, all of which are equally valid. Go ahead, Doug.
Well, I was just going to say there have been a lot of questions here that have been asking about the, what technique to use. And I would say that ultimately, while there may be good and bad techniques, while there may be techniques that would tend to be evolutionary most of the time, and there may be techniques that would tend to be involutionary most of the time, the secret is never in the technique itself. It's in the consciousness of the individual as they employ that technique. And two different people can employ the exact same identical technique and get diametrically opposed results, where one can be very uplifted by that technique, and another person can get very, very trapped in that particular technique. Take a mantra, for example, where one repeats a particular word over and over and over again. For most individuals, virtually everyone in the Western world that would try something like that, the tendency is going to be that they're going to focus their attention on the mantra to the exclusion of everything else, and it's thus going to become a very great trap for them. It's going to be very, very limiting and very, very involutionary. There will be those rare individuals who are able to focus their attention on the mantra to the simultaneous encompassment of everything else, and it will really open things up for them and be very uplifting. The secret was not in the technique, it was in the consciousness of the individual as they applied that technique. And so I think what we need to do here, as John's suggesting, is look beyond techniques, look beyond particular lineages and groups and organizations, and start to realize that it's the consciousness of the individual that is of the ultimate importance here, not the technique. And I don't say that to disparage or put down any particular technique any more than I say it to recommend any particular technique, because ultimately the success or failure doesn't lie in the technique. It lies within the individual and the will and desire of that individual. And consider, if we go right back to the scale of emotions, where are most of us starting out? Maybe level 6, maybe level 7. We're at a level where the consciousness is very, very limited. We're extremely identified with matter. We're extremely fixated or focused upon the outer. And the first thing that we really need to take care of are the crystalline structures within the human body. We need to take care of centuries or eons or millennia or lifetimes, however you want to look at it, of enslavement, of enmeshment in matter. entrapment within our own reactive patterns that have come down through the ages on a soul level, on a genetic level, on an entity level. Somewhere along the line, we have to start to address these patterns, because until we can overcome these patterns, none of these techniques are going to be successful for us. John asked Wolf there a question. He asked about the TM technique, where it was acknowledged that the goal of this was to first get that burning, searing pain throughout the body, which would correspond to the painful level of pain on the scale of emotions. And then once you'd gone through the burning, searing pain, you would get the vibration or the current through the body, which is what John would term the vibration of regeneration. The thing to realize is most people throughout the world today who are trying meditative techniques, regardless of the meditative technique that they're trying, are not getting that result. I've come across, I don't know how many hundreds of people that have been doing yoga for decades, and they've never had so much as a little trickle of energy up and down their spine. So we have to start looking at some other things here. One of these things, of course, is the relative level of consciousness of most of us. But the other thing to realize is the problems that we have come from the top down. We've made patterns of judgment and set resistance in motion at the mental body level. This has led to emotional resistance, which accelerates each time we fall into that pattern, and it snowballs down through the ages and leads to intense and self-perpetuating crystallization within physical matter. If we're going to reverse the bondage, the self-imposed state of bondage that we exist in, we have to recognize that we have to start at the bottom. We have to work from the bottom up. In other words, it's a healing crisis, folks. You got to start at the end and work your way backwards. So if we're looking at these three levels, the mental level, the emotional level, and the physical level, where's the sensible place to start? With the physical level. So if you look at all the people that are using meditative techniques and not really getting anywhere, they're not getting the burning, searing pain through the body, they're not getting the vibration of regeneration. In many, many instances, perhaps the single most important thing that may be keeping many people back is as simple as nutritional deficiencies. They're mineral deficient, they're enzyme deficient, they're deficient in most of the essential nutrients. You go back and read a lot of the ancient texts that were outlining methods of meditation. These texts were written for people that lived high up in the mountains. They were consuming food that was grown in very, very rich glacial soil. They were eating unprocessed food, lots of raw foods. They didn't need to worry so much about getting themselves in good shape nutritionally. And so when they employed these same techniques, they got the burning, searing pain through the body. They got the vibration through the body. They got the results. 10,000 years later, in this day and age, when people try to apply these same techniques, they often don't get anywhere. And in many cases, it's really as simple as nutritional deficiencies. So we have to start looking at a lot of other pieces of the puzzle here if we're going to get anywhere.
But if you've got a child and you want to teach them to walk, they stand there and you say, put this leg up and then this leg after it. And that's all I want to know.
Okay. Well, I would say, Ian...
I usually make sure they learn to crawl first.
Ian, be gentle with us. We're
Igor?
taking things a step at a time to the best of our ability, and we're not trying to overload you.
Well, what I was going to answer your question simply. Prayer is talking to the God presence and asking, and I think this is something that we can all do if we're confused which meditative process to do. We can all pray, and we can ask to be guided to that technique which will bring us to our highest spiritual awareness. And it's a very simple thing. It doesn't have to be so complicated. If we are in constant contact with our God presence, we will be led to that. Now, when I saw Yogananda's picture, I was attracted to him like a magnet. I'm sure there's people here that would see Sai Baba's picture, and they would feel the same thing. And maybe for them, his teachings are for them, and they should follow him. So these are just directions that we're pointing out to you, but ultimately you should pray. You should find the path that would best help you to evolve spiritually. To me, prayer is talking to the God presence. Does this help you in any way, Ian? No.
Here's what I do. Hey.
It's a personal thing.
Hey, how about this problem I've got? Here's my problem right now.
Right, exactly.
And I have a little problem right here. Hey, now I want you to listen to me, because I'm not trying to do this for anybody but these people over here where I've got a problem I don't know how to solve. Now, would you please kick me in the right spot so that I can get the right thing done for these folks over here, or this problem over here? Would you help give me a solution for this?
Exactly.
And I get very personal about this.
That's what I do too.
And I don't mince any words about it. And I get answers to my prayers that are very, very beautiful to me. But you have to use a sincere approach to your own God presence that you are intimately tied to.
If you have a problem with a karate student, with a student in one of your classes, just ask. Say, look, this person is disrupting my class. What can I do at this time to harmonize this situation? It's that simple, taking it all the way down to basics. Just even, it could be the smallest problem on earth, but it's bothering you. Ask. Just ask, what can I do to harmonize this situation? And you will get an answer. That's okay. It's fine with me.
One of the greatest problems we will have, which we'll find in the iris of the eye, is right around the pupil of the eye will be a ring, which we'll call the pupillary ruff. Many of us are, first of all, unwilling to receive. Therefore, we do not humble ourselves to ask. And many of us are so arrogant in our ways because of our natures, the way that we have been born. Our parents had certain genetic qualities that we've inherited, and we are very beautiful. And so we have our own arrogance, that even if we're told what to do, we say, get out of my face, I want to do it my way. You got these beautiful songs, I've done it my way? All right? So we're not willing to give, we're not willing to receive, and we block ourselves off from our God presence because we're not willing to learn the first law of heaven, which when we understand is the law of obedience. If we don't understand that, then we block ourselves off from God because we're not willing to receive, and we're not willing to then, why would God, Mother, Father, God, or the I Am presence, or call it what you like, why would God in any way waste stuff on us that we're not willing to take action on? So if you go in and you start praying intently, pray, hey, look, you tell me what you want me to do, and I'll do what you want me to do, and I'll go where you want me to go, but use me as a tool in the upbuilding of the kingdom of God here upon this earth. That's how some people would use it. And then when you take that position, that you will do what you are told to do, you'll go where you're told to go, then my golly, you better get out of the way, because you will receive an answer, because you'll be taken right at your word. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Okay, sir? But we have to be willing to receive, and then we have to be willing to act or give out on that which we have received. When that happens, that little round ring around the pupil will change color, which is the willingness to be yin and the willingness to be yang, the willingness to be cause, the willingness to be effect, the willingness to be one with God, the willingness to give God energy and receive God energy as we have received it, or give it as we have received it. And we start changing. Our iris of the eye starts changing. Our body starts changing. Our thinking starts changing. Our outer actions and way of life start changing. And we no longer live a restricted, contracted way of living. We become constructive. We become productive. We do things where we're of service to our fellow man, rather than worried about what am I going to get out of it.
This is very important because God is not going to, or the God presence is not going to favor you over someone else. So when we are praying, we have to keep that in mind. Yes.
There's something for you, Ian. John's kind of covered everything really as far as, Doug's talked about we're at where we're at. If you look at the scale of emotions, John's expressed, pretty bit of a tough act to follow about basically just asking in any way that you feel comfortable with. And the only thing I wanted to add was if you just feel the love in your heart when you ask or when you talk to your God presence in any way you like, then just have faith. And have fun. And smile. John, he's persistent in the method that he prays. But if you just feel love in your heart and then just have faith and assume the virtue basically that you're going to get the answers that you want.
You know you're going to get the answers.
And then just look, just wait around and look, and they'll come to you. And if you're not looking, and if you're praying hard enough, or meditating hard enough, or long enough, and persistent enough, and you're not out there looking, you don't see it, it'll come back at you and hit you in the face until you do see it and go, ah.
God has the greatest sense of humor in the world. How can he possibly deny you?
You got to figure God's got a pretty good sense of humor, Ian. He made all of us. One thing I would say too is be grateful. Be just as grateful as you're asking for that answer. Be just as grateful as you're asking it as you would be as if you'd already received it. Be grateful in advance.
Okay. Hey, you've got a problem here. There's a feeling in the room coming from somewhere, I don't know where, but it's really there, about the idea of unworthiness. Let me talk about that for 1 minute. Is there unconditional love? Is that a quality of God? Is unconditional love, unconditional forgiveness qualities of God? Okay, now stop and think about that for a minute. God would cease to be God the moment he didn't forgive you in advance for what you have done, what you are doing, and what you will be doing. There's no problem there. You're already forgiven. And some of you are very, very concerned about being forgiven for being a delightful deviation from the norm. Guilt has no place in the scheme of things. You're already forgiven. The problem you're going to have is forgiving yourself. That's the only problem you're going to have. And you're going to let go of that guilt by dedicated service to your fellow man. And then you realize it doesn't matter what you've done in the past. We're all in the same boat together. We've all goofed, sometimes quite royally. Okay? Now the problem is, what do we do with the rest of our life? And that's where we take the position of lovingly and willingly serving our fellow man. Whether it be washing off a dish, getting a log off the trail, taking a black snake back down to the lake, doing something which is going to be a service. Now, if we want to kill the snakes, we perpetuate the invasion of snakes upon our space. If we respect the snake and save their lives, there will come a time when that same snake will come to us and preserve our life. Please consider that. Mosquitoes need to be sent to the light. I mean, who wants to live in a mosquito body and suck people's blood? I mean, that's really somebody made a mistake there. Just remember, everything's perfect divine order. Now, back to your question, Ian. Go ahead and voice it. Yes, you do, sir.
I've read in the book, and I've got the little card of the God presence and the tube of white light and all that, and I sit there and I read, I am that I am, and I go, hey, what?
That's the most powerful words you can ever have when you realize that you are is that is. However you want to say it. Because when you say I am, you are recognizing yourself as one with divinity. That's simple. Just say, the person up there guiding and directing you has already made the grade. Now all you have to do is follow in the footsteps by the law of obedience, and you'll come to that same understanding. There's no secrets here. Okay, don't work with it. Play with it. Play with it. Get the idea of work out of your mind. Let's have fun. And what happens when you're having fun? What happens to all the resistance? What happens when you're having fun with everything that you do and you have gratitude for every experience of life? Where's the resistance? But what happens when we have to work at it? Hey, we don't need that, folks. Let's just have fun. And this opens up the light of God to every human being when you have fun. And you just let joy permeate your being. No matter what happens, just enjoy it. We're all delightful deviations from the norm. And we all have the same right to think and act and live and believe how we want to believe. That's the important part. And we need to protect each other in that freedom. Now,
Do any of you want to talk about the same subject? Is it a small one?
Rebecca, go ahead. I want you to voice your question.
Okay, my question is actually going back to we were talking about the angel, okay, and what I would like to ask is, in dream time, or what the Aboriginals call real time, you can see a lot of these people or beings or energies. Now, is there a way of checking in the real time?
There's no question about it whatsoever. When you are able to get in contact with the spirit world, which you already know how to do so, when you already know how to talk to your ancestors, you already know how to talk to your grandparents, you can see them as clearly as you can see the pathway you're walking on. You see them. You know that they're there. They are there.
But sometimes, what about the other ones? I mean,
they're there.
Ones you don't. Okay. So. And
you'll have opposition in all things. Now, many people, in your case, because of your particular lineage, your genetics, you have the gift of seeing the spirit world. And the spirit world will be revealed to you in many different ways. You'll have opposition in all things. You'll have your ancestors on one hand, you'll have devils on the other hand. Because in all phases of life, you'll have all opposition. You'll have no trouble. Just enjoy them. You tell the negative ones, get away from me, I don't want to talk to you. But Grandpa, you come over here, I want to chat with you about this matter over here. You follow what I'm saying, because you're already doing it. Is that correct? All right. Now just enjoy. No problems. You have that gift. Don't deny that gift that you have. It's a beautiful gift. Don't deny that, please. Because you have many people saying that this is nothing but demonism, and it isn't. It's acknowledging the spirit world, who are our ancestors and who are between lives, and they haven't been recycled yet. Because you still have a little bit of work to do, because your guardian angels literally are your ancestors, and they're your two grandfathers. You think about that, because they're there all the time with you. Okay. Yes, sir. Pardon me for getting into your space, all right? Rebecca? It's important because not everybody has that ability that you have. And I want to acknowledge you, and I don't want in any way to cause you to not have that ability. Just nourish it carefully, please, because not everybody has that ability. All right? Please, just nourish it. And keep your own counsel regarding those things. Yes, sir.
Perhaps, sorry, yeah, right. In the case of playful meditation...
David, directional, please.
Right.
Any man with a beard has to be upright here now.
We okay now, are we? Yes, that sounds better. In the case of meditation, it has, as was said, many aspects and lots of levels. But if you just simply want to, rather playfully, get yourself into a space where you're at peace and at ease with yourself, and you can then feel that you can get into that evasive subject that you want to sort of dwell on and you're not really sure what it is, just sit there and relax, and as those thoughts come into your head, put them on a leaf and watch them float down a stream. This sort of takes the material aspect of all those things that come in and in and in and allows you to shed them and gives you a clean space. You might sit there for a long while and still keep them coming, but eventually they'll stop, and then you can really apply yourself to everything and nothing at the same time. Just a thought.
Now that's creative visualization. But let's not allow creative visualization to remove ourselves from the recognition of that which is within the realm of the definition of truth. Truth is the knowledge of things as they are, as they were, and as they are to be. And as you expand your individual awareness, you'll be aware of the energy patterns that are encompassing you from every direction in this entire room and out beyond. And you'll know the past. And you will also know the future just as well as you're looking here at a person sitting in the chair. I promise you that. But to expand that concept, we have to go back to an understanding of this material which Doug went over here with you. Okay? And when we understand that properly, and you go into lotus position, and you go through your meditation, you go through the numbness, and your whole bottom is, after a while, burning off with fire right down there in the seventh chakra area, okay? Or the first chakra, depending on which way you're counting, okay? When that happens, and you're burning up down there, you don't move that doggone body. You just keep breathing deep and regular in whatever way is comfortable for you. It's very important to continue breathing at that point. You keep breathing, and there's no one way to breathe necessarily until you get into the advanced techniques where you have your 49 methods of breathing, okay? But let's start where we are and get the unconsciousness off, and we start moving up the scale of emotionality. And at that time, we begin to feel these different emotions coming up. We'll have the apathy. I can't go on. I just can't take it anymore. This is too much. Go through that and realize that you have the power to do whatever you decide to do. And go through that excruciating pain that you must pass through. Now, in the visualization and consciousness class, Doug, how many hours at a time do we sit there going through burning, searing pain?
Oh, sometimes 6 or 7.
How many?
Oh, 6, 7, 8 maybe.
9? Anita? Hours of pain. How many hours?
Days. I mean, it doesn't stop. Days and 2 months.
And then what finally happens?
It stops. It's not there anymore.
That's good. But sometimes you have to get that pain completely out of your body because of all of the infractions of law whereby in the past we've had so much resistance, genetically, otherwise, and soul level, that we have all of this pain recorded in every cell of the body, and that body must be purged. Now, this is the pain that we're talking about that you get in meditation. But it's going to take hours of time, just like it is in any other situation. In kahuna training, you sit 5 days without moving. And you burn and you hurt, and if you move 1 square inch, you get a knot on your head. Okay? Now, I don't do that to people. We usually have other means of... but here's the... But the thing is you work through the pain. But you have to have a little bit of help and a little bit of duress to go through, to make it through that, so that you can enter into the mental body and start having clear visual memories. And that is hard work. And we're talking about meditation. How far do you go with meditation? I want Doug to talk now. We've got time, folks. We're taking time tonight, and I hope you don't worry about the clock. What clock? Thank you. I saw a couple people looking up there, and we're supposed to stop at 9 o'clock. Nonsense to that. We might go till midnight. But I want Doug to talk about this, because, Doug, did you go through burning?
Yeah, for about 4 years.
Okay, about 4 years of solid, serious burning. And he did it dragging his feet and kicking like the rest of us.
Mostly.
Okay. Did you go through unconsciousness?
Oh, yeah.
How many years?
Most of the time.
Most of the time?
I was a big element of it.
And he was a big element of it. But the thing is, he has done this in such a way that other people don't have to go through all of that. Okay? They don't have to go through that. It's already been done for them. Just like we talked about, Alan talked about this big little knot that everyone used to have on the xiphoid process. Well, one day, everyone burned here, and then it was gone. Just gone. And you don't have that anymore. Everyone used to have curvatures of the spines. We don't have that much anymore. We have some people with a little curvature here or there, but they're all straightening out because of the tens of thousands, the hundreds of thousands of people that are involved in body electronics, straightening out all these crooked spines. We'll get into all that. Does anybody here have a problem with the curvature of the spine? Just a handful. John, haven't we taken care of yours yet? Nope. Okay. Mental note. But we still have a few little curvatures, and we'll have to work those out. Esther, please come up.
Ian, I want to make... Sorry. Yeah, because you touched quite a point there, I think, for everybody. It's about the decreeing. You said you saw a little book, and it was I am that I am. I mentioned the other day about my gardener, and who had the vision with the violet flame and the light. And he said those words, I am, were the most powerful, because he had, an African gardener is quite strong. So it knocked him the energy of saying just those 2 words. And if you accept your divinity, then you will be able to... What I'm trying to say here is, when I first saw the words, I am, and took it literally, it was just like you said, uh-oh. And if you would ask, just say those words, trying to feel them, those words, I am, accepting your divinity. In the beginning it scared me. I am, accepting that I really do exist. Those are really the first 2 words when you start your decreeing. And I think if you would start by accepting that first, if you can get over truly accepting that and being able to say that.
I want to also emphasize this. I felt to say this to you too, that Ian, no, I mean, these 2 words, you don't know what a powerful statement you are making by saying those. I mean, you may think you're just wasting your time looking at a little picture going, I am, but this time is a really, and this statement is a really powerful statement.
You've already been praying, sir. And the commitment that you have made is you are going to go for it no matter what. Is that correct? What was the wording? The wording was just about there. Hey, you're going for it no matter what. And that commitment is there, and that commitment will stand. Now, let's go for it. Now, this is an interesting thing, because once you make a commitment and put that energy out, everyone will feel it. And this is very important because you've already been praying and you're asking how to pray. You've already made the commitment in decree and you're asking how to decree. You're doing it. Hey, join the club. Maggie. But remember, have fun doing it. Hey, that's the way it is. Don't make it such a tedious work. The whole thing is done in joy. If things aren't done in joy and happiness and beauty, it's never going to happen.
Some of us have to learn our lessons a little bit the hard way.
Yeah, don't look somewhere else.
Actually, I'm speaking about myself, and I want to share with you how I really learned from my own experience the power of these words. I was a student of the IM on Maui for a few sessions and read the books and felt very moved by the teachings. And I had a friend who told me, I said, to remember all these decrees for every situation, because they're very powerful, is a lot to bring in. But she said to me, Maggie, all you have to do is say, Almighty I Am. She says, that's the most powerful there. That's all you need to do. So I found myself in a situation that I created quite beautifully, where I had a ruptured ectopic pregnancy, and I was in shock and bleeding to death, actually, and I was by myself. I didn't really know what was going on, but I suddenly realized that I needed to get out of there right now and get some help. But I could barely sit up without passing out. So what I did was, I remembered that. I said, Almighty I Am, Almighty I Am. And I put out the prayer. I called on the Masters. I called on Jesus and Saint Germain and Mother Mary, and I asked them to be there with me. And I said, Almighty I Am. And I just kept saying it over and over and over as I'm driving my car, not by myself. And that experience, as I was recovering, was just so powerful for me, because it's really quite simple.
Thank you, Maggie.
With what?
You got something you want to share?
Well, I have all sorts of things. Okay.
Follow up on me.
Please close the door.
I don't have anything there.
What was your realization in that moment? We told that to you once. After what Maggie had gone through, what was your realization at that time?
I am.
No help, please.
I don't remember.
What happened to you when you realized what took place?
I don't remember.
You better go back and remember, sir.
Yeah.
because that was one of the greatest learning experiences you ever had, was what she went through. You don't remember? What went through your mind and heart at the time when you found out that all this was going on? We got a healing crisis going on up here, folks. What was the realization when you finally understood that she survived? We'll have to have his points held and get the shock out of his system.
Yeah.
You don't remember. You don't remember what you shared with me. You don't remember. Okay, you're safe. Okay, that's important. Hey? This is where we need to go back and look at things, because our greatest trials bring about our greatest insights. And oftentimes we forget our insights. And this is wherein we need to look back on these things and cherish those moments of insight that we had. Because they come once in our life and they never come again. So we should cherish them when they come. If we have a bad memory, we should record them down. We need to feed them more oxygen here.
Yeah. Go out and find some Coca-Cola.
Okay, John, sir.
I want to do two things. First, I want to express my admiration for that speech you made just now, Doug, on meditation. The beauty of the language really moved me. And I want to tell a little story about teaching Tai Chi. He's a hard martial artist, and I'm only a soft martial artist, but this applies to point holding as well as to my own embarrassment, and perhaps a little less than humility, and it applies to what you were saying about people do meditation and they, few of them ever feel even a trickle of life energy as a result. Well, I'm a fanatical perfectionist, as some of you have already observed, and I was teaching Tai Chi one day, and I had in my Tai Chi class then, and he's come back to me recently after a gap of a year, a fat old man whose Tai Chi is unbelievably terrible. How could anybody do Tai Chi so disgustingly? And I saw him do a particular movement one day, even worse than everything else. And I thought, I must try to do something about this. So I did that. I said to the class, let's revise such and such a movement. Suppose it was step back and twist like monkey. Let's revise step back and twist like monkey. And so I did it left brain, I did it right brain, I did it in little pieces. I repeated it 17 times, and the class was doing it to utter perfection, and he was doing it just as bad as he had before I started. I never said anything to him, I just left him to do Tai Chi in the most disgusting way. And a few months later, at the end of the class, he came up to me one day, and he said to me, "Today, I felt the chi moving in my arms and hands," and his face was full of light. He was enlightened by this experience. And some of my Tai Chi students excel the master, of course. Not that I'm a master, but they excel the instructor. And their Tai Chi is beautiful, really beautiful. But not one of them has ever come up and said to me, "I felt the chi moving in my hands and arms." And when you go to do point holding and you look around the room and you say to yourself, "I'll go and hold points on Elizabeth because she'll have a miracle occur to her tonight," you're anticipating. And I've learned in Tai Chi, don't anticipate.
Thank you, John. There's one person that really wants to share something. Who is it?
I guess today's coming full circle.
Yeah, the resident sage is making his closing remark for the night?
John made a remark of keeping your own counsel. I wonder if you go into that in detail, because that's very important. If you're receiving a message from the spirit world, and you go to the material world for evaluation of that, you're really breaking down the advice that you asked for in the first place.
You mean we don't get to vote on Revelation?
Bottom line, Goethe, the German philosopher, was a truly inspired man. And he said one time, great things are done in secret. Now, one of the lessons that I have learned is that if you receive anything from the heavens, you are responsible for that. And the more secrets you learn how to keep without revealing them, the more secrets you'll be trusted with. You hear me? So therefore, you teach the principles that are appropriate at the time to teach, which are usually within the realm of lower laws. But those things that pertain to higher laws, you only teach to those people who are receptive to them. And you don't teach that openly in classes. You teach them individually to people who have inquired sufficiently to where you know that that person's not going to, shall we say, break your confidence in some way. Okay?
I was thinking more in asking for personal guidance, and then you go to another person and ask for evaluation on that.
No. Once you know from upstairs, you keep that to yourself, and you don't go around and get permission from somebody to do it.
That's what I want.
But you better make sure that what you're getting is in line with proper laws and procedures. That's another important part. Jim Geither, what do you want to share with everybody here tonight? Are you a Boy Scout? You should always be prepared. Jim, come up and talk to us.
Here's your chance to pray.
Let's see, roll through the 1, 2, 3, 4. I was thinking this earlier. I was not thinking this now, but maybe now is the time to kind of talk about this. I came back from Maui. This is a weird one. I'm not really sure what to make of it. And I guess maybe we'll discover as we go on. I came back from Maui from the VNC and had a lot of interesting things happen. One of them was kind of got a little bit sick, and it ended up being a real intense pain in my right ear. I had been actually, let me back up a second. Coming back from Maui, I'd really been praying for, okay, I had this experience here, and I wanted to find out what the next level of learning was for me, and I figured it was, I thought, kind of mentally learning or learning from the Ascended Masters in some way, or learning from those kind of teachings. So I'd been praying on that quite heavily, and had got this stupid earache, and it was, what was it? It was this summer. I shouldn't have gotten an earache. It was this summer. So I just laid down, I drained it out, do the stupid mechanical things, you get rid of this. Okay, not stupid, we'll treat it right. We'll be real nice and do all the nice things, but just get rid of it right away so I can get on and do some, serious meditation and learn to the masters and everything. So I started, like I guess I am right now, I started sweating a lot. This is different, it's all bright lights. And actually, I was married and still am now, but it got kind of embarrassing. I just was up late at night, and it was so much sweating in the bed that it was more like swimming. I would roll around, and half sweat, half grease, half oil, and I was kind of embarrassed, and I kept kind of edged over to the side so my wife wouldn't kind of feel the sponginess of the cover at that time. And all of a sudden, I kind of had an interesting experience where kind of a light went off, and I felt this thing, which I don't know what it was. You were talking about translations before, and it was something which was not language. It was sort of an energy, sort of a something, and I recognized it as poetry. I don't know how to say that other than just that. In my mind, it was going very fast. My mind was having to think very fast to kind of interpret it so that it would make sense. And I interpreted it was a Saint Germain decree coming across. And I didn't know anything that was going on at the time. I didn't know what it was. I thought it was me dreaming, or at that point I was hallucinating because I had apparently such a high fever going on. And the thing kept building over and over, and had a rhythm in the poetry, rhythm in the energy, which I interpreted as a rhythm in the poetry. And it had a rhythm in the intensity of the words that were used at the end of each one of the, I guess I'd have to say, stanzas. And I was convinced that what I had was, like I said, a stupid ear infection, an earache. I'd had this before. I just wanted to get rid of it. And the last thing that kind of built up and up and up was the last words were, "and cast the vile creature out." And this just floored me, because I had thought, this is an infection. I know there's zillions of bacteria. There's viruses in here. There's things. I know how to treat these things, and it's not a vile creature, not a singular. It's a lot of stuff. But just like that, let me get this right. Just sweating too much here. I was. There you go. Try it. It's the fever broke. I must have during this whole time just got this tremendous fever where I was just sweating like I was sweating. And it just broke. I was cool at that point. I was immensely cool, and the coolness was starting inside. So it took a couple minutes to get to the outside. So I actually had to go in the bath and get the stuff out of me, because it was still coming out for another 5 or 10 minutes. So I went in the bath, and it was really neat, because I knew that fever. I had that delirious fever, heard the whole thing. And when I heard that vile creature out, I came down to a certain level of coolness, really good clarity of mind. Went in the bath, had a good time, sit around for 10 minutes, kind of sponged it off and everything, and used a Q-tip to clean my ears out. And guess what happened? I had this worm come out of my right ear, which was, like I said, I would swear that it was an infection or whatever. And my God, this little worm thing came out. It was a vile creature, yeah. So I guess I don't know how to decree either, but...
Jim, that's quite an experience, sir. Come on up and join us, sir. Wolf, are you
in line? Oh.
You're in line? Hang on just a moment.
Just a practical question, please. Now, I'm getting totally confused here. I'm sorry about it. I still, to this very minute, do not understand the difference between praying, decreeing, and meditating, because it all seems the same to me.
I would say that decreeing, you are using a stronger force of will, and sometimes it's accompanied by an ascended master's name. No.
Wolf?
We'll cover that later, Wolf.
If you have a copy of Book 1 handy, Wolf, and you want to study up a little bit, look up the chapter on prayer, where the whole thing will be related to the scale of emotions, and you'll be a little bit ahead of the game there.
Thank you very much. Myself, I'm born Hindu, but I don't really practice Hindu, but I have tried to understand what is Hinduism. And as in the morning you heard John saying about Guru and Chela, and then he mentioned today Yogi Nanda and Maharishi. And if you go 100 years back, the first World Conference in Chicago on religion, and Swami Vivekananda was an uninvited guest who attended that conference. And I'll go back to Swami Vivekananda, who practiced also meditation, but he had a guru called, I forget his name now, but I'll come back to it. What I'm saying that to practice yoga and real meditation, I'm advising Ian he should find the right guru to teach him yoga and meditation. And as what I know little of yoga and meditation, it requires a lot of dedication and discipline. And that's how you can reach to meditation. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And this goes back again to the law of obedience, because you cannot learn something except from somebody who's been there. It's like learning to play the violin. You better go to somebody who knows how to play it. You can't pick up a violin and start scratching at it on your own and become a violin player. This is wherein you do need that added instruction from somebody who's been there before you. Thank you very much, sir.
I've had some experience in active meditations, and I've just got a practical suggestion. If anyone has a music player and would like to get up early, we could do some active meditations, which I have found tremendous for just getting into a still place. And from there you can go on to something else. But this is, to me, it's just been a wonderful way of having some action, maybe dancing, maybe even gibberish, maybe laughing, maybe crying. But for some reason, it just sort of gets all that action and chattering out of the way, and you can just sort of go into a quiet space. And then from there, if you want to, you can go deeper. But if anyone likes to provide the music, I've got the tapes, and we could do some.
How many are interested in that in the morning? Okay, talk to Glenn after the meeting tonight and get yourselves together and have an enjoyable morning.
I just got here. I think I will give a break at Ian, so I'll just ask a question. We were just talking about getting messages like a medium or angels or whatever, depends on which dimension, I guess. I just remembered when I was sitting there, the story when you got the message while you were walking, I think it was a Maui from the sensitivity plant. Could you explain to us how you knew that it was a good message? Like I myself communicate also with plants, and sometimes I wonder, is this true, is this not true? But I just intuitively follow it, and it seems to be right. But I don't have the things, that somebody appears or whatever. So that's my question. How did you know that it was a correct thing?
Tariq, would you mind if I save that until we start talking about the sensitive leaf at a later time? Thank you. Just let it rest for a little while. We'll get to that. Now, back to you, Ian. What else would you like to share with us, sir? Okay. Now, what you're looking at is how do you pray, how do you meditate, and how do you decree, or how do you affirm. All of these things here take years and years and years of experiential success to be able to understand that. And you'll find many different methods of affirmation, decreeing, meditating, and praying that each person will use uniquely their own way. The important thing is once you're in within certain ground rules, you're not going to be a failure. You're going to be a success at what you're doing. But if you are doing something which is involutionary in nature, that we will discuss in greater detail later on, then this takes us down the primrose path, and we fail in our ability to reach a point of spirituality and a oneness with God. Because there are things not to do as well as things to do, and that is simply too much to cover in one evening. You can't do that. Okay, so if we have a little bit of joy and happiness here, is it all right that we don't know? Good. Now this is what we have to look at, because sometimes we have to just be patient on these things, and we try to point the way to further study that may take you several years. So that's something just to consider. Anita.
What subject? Any other question, Ian? Sleep. Okay. Well.
Now, let me explain something one more time. I think we ought to explain this before we hit the sack tonight. The greater your dedication on one hand, the greater the opposition will be to your dedication. And you'll have everything come in from the dark side to balance up the commitments you have made to the light side. Now, these are very, very subtle. I want to share one experience with you that may bother you a little bit, but I do know that some of you will benefit from this knowledge. When we were in India this last trip, for whatever reason, it was after quite a heavy rainstorm, and there are many, many cobras that were captured in the city of Varanasi. And I was considering what would happen if I ever confronted a cobra head on, how I would handle that. Because I've never been around a cobra. And suddenly I had a cobra right in my face, a hooded cobra, and it was just a very, very real picture to me. And I thought to myself, well, I better not resist cobras because I'm certainly creating one here in front of me. And I let it pass. I tried to focus on other things, and that cobra remained right there. That went on day after day after day. And I couldn't figure that one out. And finally, we went down to Sri Lanka. And this cobra was still there. I talked to Anita about that. I couldn't figure out this cobra. And then we came to New Zealand. And we got a very beautiful place up near Kerikeri, where I recuperated from, was still in recuperation from that deadly virus that we caught over there that nearly died from. But the cobra was still there in my face. And all of a sudden, one day, my feet got numb, my hands got numb, and I felt I was dying. And the cobra was very real and right in my face. And then I decided that something had better be done here, and I better take a good look at this because this is more than just a resisted memory. We started dealing with it, and we started doing our thing, and everything got ice cold in the room. And we used a decree that we'll be talking about a little later on, talking about decrees. And I had been taking my supplements. I had been deathly ill, and I felt my strength just being sapped from me, and I couldn't explain this. And we checked very carefully in our own way into what had happened, and suddenly we realized that somebody who didn't understand us and didn't understand our intentions had put a curse on us, which is very common among the Hindus. They have many ways of just putting a curse on people. And here I was a white man in a country of Indians, and somebody must have been very upset with me because of the success that we've had in body electronics and the large number of Indian friends and doctors that were supporting the work of body electronics. Somebody was very upset. And it's very easy to put a curse on somebody. Very easy. And it turned out that the curse was a slow, lingering death type curse. And the longer that this cobra was there, it was slowly sapping my energy from me, and I was dying. And I knew this. We used a decree for an exorcism. And Anita simply understood this. We had the cold wind there. The numbness was there. This thing was exorcised, and the cobra was immediately gone, and my body warmed up. My feeling came back in the numbness of my legs and my hands, which was just slowly creeping up through my body. Doug understands this from times past. Now, the problem is I didn't recognize this as a cursing. I didn't recognize this as possibly something from black magic or sorcery of some sort. I didn't recognize this because all I had was just a cobra's head right there, day and night, right in my face. I didn't recognize it because I've never had that experience before. We are here to share experiences. And oftentimes we have experiences that we don't understand that are brought about through our work in light and our darkness and the sorcery, the black magic. Some of these people involved in this get very offended at what we're doing and what we're saying because their power is taken away. When your power is restored, their power is gone. And so we'll be sharing with you exactly what to do if we run across opposition. Now, who was here last year? Let's see a show of hands. Stand up. Better yet, what week was it when this whole area was invaded by UFOs? Was it the second or the third week? The third week. We had UFOs landing out here in the field where some of you are camping. Are you hearing me? We had people here who knew and were friends with some of those UFOs and have been friends for a long time and went out and talked to them. Is that correct? Okay. We had people screaming their fool heads off from out there in the camping area, and they came in here and bundled up over here in the four party rooms that hadn't been fully occupied. We had some very interesting things. We had two people who were being pulled out by a tractor beam right out through the walls of the room, and they denied, said, "We're not going to go," and they did not go willingly. Are you hearing me? Now, what I'm saying is we had some very, very wild experiences here for about 1 week. Now, Doug, am I exaggerating?
No.
Would you like to share some of the things so that we are going to be aware of things that have occurred and could occur? Not that we're creating them, because none of us knew this was going to happen. But we had a tremendous influx of UFOs and UFOs walking around the campground, and people saw them. Some people talked to them, and it was quite a weird experience. Go ahead, sir.
Well, there was really all sorts of stuff that happened there. There was a couple of different people that experienced being pulled out of the rooms. There was a couple of different people that were aware of that happening. I remember Desley saw a lot of the lights and this and that, and was a witness to a lot of the things. And
we did have people who had been abducted before. Now, question here: has anybody here been abducted before, knowingly, on a UFO? Okay. Tariq, bless your heart. Who's back there? Stand up so I can see your faces. Okay, Rex, you've been there? And you've been there? Okay, how many? We got 4 people, 5 people that have been here abducted on UFOs. Now, my friends, I want you to know something. 6 people. You weren't on a ship, but you had the experience. 6 people. Now, these are very real things, and I'll tell you, when they happen, they scare you spitless, And you're going to have to be aware that some of these things exist. So please be aware and be very prayerful for not only your protection, but for the protection of everybody else here, which we've done before, and for the highest and best good for the experience level of everybody involved. Okay? Doug.
Well, John started this whole thing off by talking about sorcery, but he was basically mentioning the principle that wherever there's a great amount of light, that light will draw to itself darkness. I mean, that's the nature of the physical universe. Wherever you have the greatest amount of light, you'll also draw in the greatest amount of darkness. This is a principle of the physical universe. There's opposition in all things. So one of the things to realize is that at a gathering such as this, where you have a great number of people here that are working very diligently to overcome their own resistances. This is a great threat to the dark forces, whether these are dark forces that are out of bodies or whether these are dark forces that are in some type of body, human or otherwise. And so over the years at Body Electronics courses, particularly the instructor's courses and the visualization and consciousness courses, there has been I guess you could say more than our fair share of UFO activity over the years. And so this has been something that's happened on any number of occasions. Back in late 1986 on Maui, we had a little community out there, and this was where we held the visualization and consciousness courses. And right around Christmas time one evening, there was a family that lived out there, and they had a little girl who would have been, I believe, around 4.5 at the time. And one evening, they lived kind of on the back end of the property there, I guess the front end really, but
just a stone's throw.
Yeah, just 100 yards from most of the rest of us. And this little girl, when she got up in the morning, she told her parents that she'd seen 3 spaceships. And of course, her parents just kind of said, "Oh yeah, sure, whatever, you were dreaming." I mean, they didn't really take her very seriously. I mean, she's 4.5 years old. But she was very, very insistent about it, and she drew all these pictures, and when she would tell the story, it would always be absolutely exact same story. There were 3 of them, and she'd draw the picture, and she'd show the dogs barking at the spaceships and whatnot, and she'd point exactly up to this one spot on the hill behind the house where the spaceships had been, and she was very, very, very insistent about it. The hillside behind the house was covered with probably about
3 to 4 feet.
Yeah,
right?
3 to 4 feet high in very, very thick ferns and grass. It was the type of if you've ever
some little shrubs.
Very, very difficult to walk through. Very, 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 very dense underbrush there, primarily ferns and grass and little shrubs and things. And about just a couple of days or so after this had been reported, the stepfather of this little girl happened to go walking up on that hillside to actually he was going up there to fill up his water tank, which was pumped up from the stream. And he got up on the hillside and he found up there these 3 perfectly elliptical areas where the ferns were absolutely smashed flat into the ground, as if there'd been an absolutely tremendous weight on them. There was no track leading to or away, either towards or away from any of these shapes. These were perfect ellipses that were probably at least 15, or say at least 5 meters across. They were quite large.
Kareem went up and he said there was 3 rectangles around that elliptical circle.
Yeah, which would be, probably like the landing gear or something like that. But basically some absolutely massive, massive symmetrical shapes had obviously sat there for a while. And totally, if you've ever seen this type of vegetation, it would take an absolutely immense weight to smash it down like that. And like I said, absolutely no sign of, you couldn't very well have driven a car or any type of machinery in or out of there without leaving some sort of trace of it, without leaving some sort of tracks. And there was absolutely nothing leading to or from that. A number of us went up after the fact and saw this with our own eyes.
Kareem told me that in that entire area, on that part of the end of the property, there were 9 circles.
Oh, 9?
9. I believe that's what Kareem had said. Not just 3, but 9. I thought to myself, wow.
Now, did you want to talk a little bit about John Walsh and...
Oh, my, folks. Are you ready for some heavy-duty material? Are you too tired? Is anybody too tired? Raise your hands if you are. Can you take about another 15 minutes? You've got to know this, folks. This is reality. Go ahead, Doug.
Well, if you go back historically in most places in the earth, there's been many different types of peoples and races that have lived in these areas back before what's accepted as recorded history. In the Hawaiian Islands, you still hear a lot of talk about what were known as the Menehune, which were little people. I guess some people would refer to them as Hawaiian leprechauns. And there's a lot of talk in this day and age of that, but most people don't take it all that seriously. We had one individual that took these instructor's courses out in Maui, and I guess it would have been 1989. And he was sleeping in one of the bunkhouses one evening, and there were several other people in the room there who were also asleep. And he woke up in the middle of the night, and he could feel like a little pair of hands, tiny little pair of hands, kind of messing around with the back of his head. And he was a little bit frightened at first because he wasn't quite sure what was going on. And so he just lay perfectly still and didn't say anything or move or try to, because he wasn't really quite sure what was going on. But basically, this individual had the experience at an earlier point in his life of having been abducted on a spaceship. He was out driving out on the road one night with his girlfriend, and the vehicle that they were traveling in all of a sudden it just wouldn't go anymore. The truck just stopped, and he couldn't start it, couldn't drive it, couldn't make it move. His girlfriend was basically more or less just kind of paralyzed and incapable of moving or speaking for maybe an hour or two, while he was taken away to a spaceship and then eventually brought back. And he had the experience on the spaceship of actually having a little implant that was put down at I believe at the base of the brain there.
Now, hold on. You listen to this man, because there are a number of reports today by X-rays where people have been implanted into the medulla area at the base of the skull with a tiny cylindrical shaped implant, which this one was. And this is now very common. Some people say 1% of the people in the United States have been implanted with this and have had abduction type activity up till now.
At any rate, this one gentleman had the experience of having a little bit of help in getting rid of his implant, where he had what was a Menehune, one of the little people, basically come and remove it from the back of his head there.
There were 3 of them on the inside and 1 on the outside. And Alex and a couple of other people saw the Menehunes there, but didn't do anything. They just watched. One was sitting up on a bunk, on the top bunk with the legs over the side. Another person was performing the operation with his fingers, and the third person was standing beside the one performing the operation.
And Ron Norwood saw one of them outside.
Ron Norwood saw the one outside, and Alex York saw the one on the inside working on John Walsh.
John.
Yeah.
John actually, to go a little bit further in the story, he talked to the man who was the caretaker there, who was an old Hawaiian gentleman. This is at a YMCA camp on Maui, and he was just asking him if he knew anything about this sort of thing. And this man, his name was Jimmy, kind of just said to John, well, I'm a Christian, so I'm not supposed to believe in this sort of thing. That's kind of how he prefaced it. But I'll tell you what's happened to some of my friends. And he talked about several of his friends who'd had the experience of, taro, which they grow in a lot of the islands. It's grown in these kind of like something similar to a rice paddy, where it's like a flooded, terraced field. And it's a tremendous job to put in a taro patch. You're putting these like stone walls and digging things out and whatnot. And there were certain people that Jimmy was aware of who had been very, very good people, lived good lives and helped others and so forth, where they had the experience of getting up one morning and finding a taro patch that had been excavated overnight for them.
All cleaned out, all the rocks put back in place, all of the irrigation corrected, and the taro patch completely clean. These were old Hawaiians that were suffering from arthritis, and they couldn't take care of their own taro patch anymore. The whole thing is completely cleaned out and parked, you might say, everything, all the scrub was out of there, and what happens is during the night of the, shall we say, the darkness of the moon, there's a trail up above the main road going into Hana. And there's a trail up there which they call the Minahuni Trail. Only the locals know about this. They don't tell the other people. But on this trail, about 500 of them come down from the lava tubes up on Haleakala Crater area. And they walk down this trail and they come down the Kenai Peninsula. And every so often they come down and clean out the taro patches for the old Hawaiians. And this is part of the Minahunis. You also find them in the buried in the underground cities in western Samoa on the northern island, because they're also there. You find them also on Big Island in certain places, and you find them also on the island of Kauai, where they have built these huge irrigation ditches. You find them also on the island of Molokai, where they have put in these huge fish ponds. Now, the Minahuni are very real. They are the little people. And frankly, they have evidenced themselves as our friends by helping our people from time to time. And this is something that I want to bring to your attention, because these people have never been conquered. They have used only the powers of the human mind for good and have never gone to war. But every battle they've had, they simply used mind power to create a victory over their very armed and, shall we say, their aggressors. Anything more you want to say there? Anita, you were there. Anything more you want to say? Maggie, anything you want to say? Okay, now these are things we have. Actually, these things are happening in our midst. With about every seminar, we have things that are totally unexpected and totally different from any other seminar. We had a teacher seminar in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Were you there at the time? We had 110 gravestones. Jim, you were there. There were 110 gravestones in the seminary across the street from the castle in Kalamazoo. Remember that? You saw it in the paper the next day. They had a big snowstorm. There wasn't one footprint. And yet 110 for the number of people we had at the seminar, 110 gravestones were tipped over, and some of them were so large they can only be tipped over with a Caterpillar tractor. No human being could have done it. They're big gravestones. Is that correct, Jim? And it was in the Kalamazoo newspaper the next day. Now, this is reality. Are you hearing me? And this is the sort of things that come up. We have sometimes some very violent storms that happen during the seminars as the energies are released. And so, frankly, from my point of view, whenever we have an instructor seminar such as this, we enter into this seminar with a little bit of fear and trepidation, because we don't know what's going to happen sometimes, because it's always something that we're totally unprepared for. This is why I really urge you all to get close to your God, to pray very definitely that we might have protection, that no harm may befall anybody, and that only that which should be for the highest and best good will transpire for this entire class. That's the basic message that I want to get out tonight. Doug, go ahead, sir.
Just one last thing on this subject of freak weather. We had a set of instructor seminars in Pennsylvania, I think in summer of '91, and it was held at Wilson College, where some of you have been, which is just a few miles from where we live. And there was one afternoon in about the midst of the, I think between the BE and Cranial Week, there was a kind of like a freak storm of tremendous violence, where right at Wilson College there were a bunch of these large trees that would just snap like matchsticks, these very, very old, huge trees, branches down and all the rest. And yet the storm basically only took place within about a 2-block radius right on and around the campus. And if you went, more than that away from there, remember that one? There was nothing. There was no damage anywhere else. We didn't even know there'd been a storm, and we only lived 3 miles away from there. But right at the college, there were like all these huge trees that were just snapped in two and all sorts of stuff. So have fun.
So let's have fun. Up till now, we've never had anybody hurt. but we've had some tremendous experiences. Pardon me? No, not always. We sometimes we have people. Sometimes we have certain groups of people with certain doctrines and belief systems that are certainly challenged by what goes on here. And so sometimes, pardon me? Yes, some did because of that. We had some people that got scared out of here and left because of the UFOs. And that did happen. And that's the way it is, folks. We had other people just said, this is enough, we've had enough here, we don't want to get involved in this UFO business, and we had 8 or 9 other people in one group left. And it just it was more than they could bear. None of them came back. And I haven't heard from one of them since. And I don't blame them. I'm just reporting the news now. To be forewarned is to be forearmed. Yes. Speak up, please. She's trying to move up here as fast as she can. It's been a long trip.
Two things. Could we have copies of the decrees of protection for the violet flame? Because I know people have them if they've got a copy machine. Could we have copies? And the other thing, I'm kind of curious if all the UFOs were from the same place or not.
I'm curious too. I'm curious too because there's different shapes and sizes of aliens, and that I know because of my own personal experiences. But I don't know how many there are, and I don't know where really they're from. I don't know that either because I didn't see them. Other people saw them and talked with them and described them. But sometimes I just don't know these things because I'm usually the last one to find out because I sleep so soundly. That's the way it is. All this activity is going on. Next morning, well, what happened? How come I didn't see all this nonsense? And I miss out on the whole show, and I just have nice dreams. Maybe I'm lucky. Okay. Well, folks, develop the spirit of inquiry. Write down your questions as we go along. And Anita, would you please take care of her request? Any questions, put down and save them for tomorrow. Pardon me? It doesn't matter. Okay. I want to introduce to you Brooke Rhodes. Brooke has been doing a lot of seminars and teaching in the Auckland area, up at Whangarei and a few other places. Is that correct, sir? And that I just want you to know that if you do need to have somebody to come into your area and teach, I know that Brooke has been very active in reading irises of eyes and helping people get started in the different areas. So I just want to introduce to you Brooke Rhodes, and he's been very active in the New Zealand area. Okay? Linda Barker. Where's Linda? And Corey. Corey, come up here, please. Now, as I understand it, both Linda and Corey have been teaching in the Brisbane area. Is that correct? And reading eyeballs, taking pictures of eyes, and doing all kinds of assorted things connected with body electronics.
Writing articles.
Writing articles in magazines and being well received. But I want to introduce you to Linda and Corey, who have been doing a very good job in the Brisbane area and the Gold Coast area, I believe. Is that correct? Yeah. But I just want to introduce you because these people have been doing their job and doing it well also. So, Jeff Barr, are you here, sir? Where's Jeff? Jeff, come up here. Have you? I want you to give a report on what's happening in the Townsville area. Have you been teaching down there? Okay. I would like to have Jeff explain what he's been doing, because we all need to be networking to some degree and know what's going on. So, Jeff, would you please tell what's been going on in your neck of the woods?
Well, our little group's sort of going along steadily, and we're just telling people as they come along, and the more people we tell, the more sort of want to know, and
okay, have there
slowly
been,
but surely growing.
have there been organized seminars in the Townsville area?
Not as yet, but we will this year.
Okay, sir, that's just fine. Thank you very much. Okay, Ann Braid, where's Ann? Ann, have you been teaching in Taronga? Okay, would you like to come up here? And I want to introduce Ann. Ann is also the secretary, I believe the secretary of the Body Electronics Institute for New Zealand. It's called BEANS. She works with human beings. So Ann, would you please introduce yourself here and tell people what you're doing down in Taronga? There's other people from Taronga here too.
Yes. Well, when we came back from Genazzano, we had a small group of us that worked well till about July, and we had a couple of what we called practitioner or intensive seminars, where we got a number who had been over here. We got together and had a couple of weekends. They were very beneficial. And then I think we went into a healing crisis for the next few months, and things fell apart. And then we did the sclerology weekend with John and Doug, and that put me into another healing crisis after a session with John. And then we've got another group through Alison Odie, who's here with us. Now, Alison is a naturopath.
Alison, where are you? Stand up, please. Make yourself known. Here's Alison Odie from Taronga.
She also writes an article regularly in the Healthy Options magazine, which is produced and edited by a friend of ours in Tauranga, and it is also now throughout Australia and other parts of the world.
Thank you, Ann. Anna Voss. Anna, would you come up here, please, and explain to everybody what you're doing?
I'm on the Gold Coast, and we've got quite a few people. There's actually 9 from our group here for this seminar, which is really tremendous. And we have 2 groups running during the week. And I actually put an ad in the Yellow Pages. We've had people responding to that, which is quite interesting. There's nobody else. I've actually got body electronics there, so people are ringing up. But it's been very good. People are just... it's mainly word of mouth, and people that have come along, and the word's just spreading. And what we found is very interesting when one person goes into a healing crisis. This is happening continually with the group. There'll be many others going through similar things. So we've basically had people in and out of healing crisis pretty much all the year round.
Thank you, Anna. Peter Brotherton from Melbourne, and I'd like to have Peter tell you what he's doing down in his area.
Well, I just casually said I'd like to help, and the universe set me up really good. It's debated a bit now, but the phone was going all day at one time, and I was able to acquire an iris camera, and that was great because I've got a lot of photos I've done. There's over 2,000 now photos I've taken, and there's always eyes to be read. So body electronics for me is 24 hours a day, whether I like it or not. We've got 2 groups in Melbourne, one in Frankston and one in Melbourne itself. But there's always new people coming in. They ring up and say, what's this body electronics? And it's best not to say too much over the phone. And I said, well, come along, we'll have a talk. Sometimes they stay for an hour, sometimes they stay for 7 hours. And that's all right, because I'm learning all the time too. And that's about it. And I think it can only get worse from now on.
Thank you, Peter. Christabel. Where is Christabel? Come up here, Christabel. Christabel, when we first met her, was quite a chunky young lady, and this is just the shadow of her former self.
Amazing, isn't it? Thought patterns, they change your life.
Now, Christabel was instrumental in getting things going in Townsville, and then she disappeared up into Darwin for a while.
And Alice Springs.
And Alice Springs for a while. And what have you been doing?
Since Alice Springs, or?
No, seminar-wise.
Well,
I think you gave a seminar. I had a seminar with Paul and.
Oh yes, in Atherton we've done a couple of seminars and just letting people know about body electronics, and actually had a few point holding sessions. But because I've only just moved to Yungaburra, we're just getting our act together, and point holding sessions will be once a week, once again in Yungaburra. And also we put a little sign up out the front, body electronics, which we've had all sorts of people coming in for their cars to be fixed. And we've explained, so the whole world is beginning to know about body electronics and about actual bodies.
Christabel is also known from her experiences as she's a very, very gifted healer. I don't know what you're doing about that anymore, Christabel, but she has a real gift, a gift of healing. And you may want to talk to her about that. She'll say, I don't use that as much as I used to. But this is a gift that she has. Okay, Kai, where's Kai Scott?
He just stepped out.
He knew his name was coming up. Okay. Wendy Neal. Wendy, would you come up here, please, and let us know what you're doing in your neck of the woods? Now, these are people who have been through the Instructor seminar last year. And it's important to know what these folks are doing because it'll give you ideas as to what you can be doing. So, Wendy?
I've been putting the word out, but I haven't had much feedback as yet for people to try it. They're interested, and I'm hoping to get a few takers when I return. So that's all I've done this year. I've taken the opportunity to do quite a bit of reading, though. Thank
you. Very good. Is Kai back yet? Okay, Neville Tree. Neville, what have you been doing, sir? This is the electronics man.
I haven't been doing much. Actually, I've had too many other activities on the go. I did a little bit of point holding with Christabel, and Paul and Suzanne have been away. I used to do it with them. No, unfortunately, I haven't been doing much, but I intend doing more.
Thank you, Neville. David Whistler. Now, this gentleman has been very active in other areas, as well as body electronics. And David, can you bring us up to date on what you have been doing?
Well, quickly, after the workshop last year, I was full of missionary zeal. And I rushed back, and I was determined to get everybody doing it just right. And they put up with me for a while, and and the groups gathered steam, and at the peak there were 3 groups, and I was holding points 5 or 6 times a week, and that lasted a couple of months, and then my body fell apart, and that my body said, that's enough, David, and I was in a lot of bother, about as bad as I had been when I started body electronics.
What is the lesson that you can teach our friends and everybody here concerning that?
I was really attached to an outcome. I was really attached to being a success in body electronics and showing people how to do it. And it's pretty hard in Byron Bay because everybody, how's that, Sakara? You want to keep your eye on me. My enthusiasm can be measured by the volume of my voice. People in Byron Bay are very spiritual, and they tend to know more about finding their way to God than anybody else. And it was quite difficult to introduce something new. I did advertise for a while at Body Electronics, and that didn't do so well. And I thought about advertising under A for Ascension, but fortunately, perhaps the wheels fell off. Yes, the wheels fell off my enthusiasm, and instead of being attached to an outcome of having 2 or 3 groups worth 20 in each and saving everybody and demonstrating perfection overnight.
It must be perfect now. It must be perfect now.
My background, and I don't want to hear a word from you, is selling insurance. For 20 years, I survived. For 20 years. Actually, when I've got I'm really conscious of presenting myself nicely. I say I was an investment consultant. But anyway, I'm used to having targets, and it's really hard to let go of that. And when I came back from the workshop, I felt that I had to sort of clean up the old group that I belonged to and get another group started on the right way. And then I started going to Lismore and working with Carol, and she put up with me pretty well. And anyway, one day, in the midst of my pain, I got to the stage where I could hardly move my head, and I couldn't lift my hand up about this far, and I had a lot of pain in my neck, and my body was saying, "Hey, David, you better do something different." And I finally agreed to let go of it, and I can remember looking outside and just seeing what a beautiful place it was. I thought, wow, look at those trees. And I hadn't seen just how beautiful it was just outside my bedroom window, just looking straight out there. And all of a sudden the pain was gone. And I just let go of pushing myself and going for a fixed outcome.
Do you hear this, my friends? This is a beautiful lesson that all of us must learn. Go over it again, David, please. You are the teacher in this area.
Well, I realized, after the realization, that I'd been in a healing crisis for about 3 months, and I didn't really know it. Like, I was rushing around, I had all this pain, and I was really rigid, you know. Don't you laugh! And that, that sort of wore thin with people after a while. But I was really clear on what I felt I had to do. Like, this is the way. And I did it, and I did it with some success, but at tremendous expense to my body in the short term. And then finally, I let go of that attachment. And I really did, lovingly and willingly, accept myself without having to be anybody, without having to do anything. Just to be myself. The divine person that's really in here, rather than the person I thought I had to act like. And since then, it's been a lot easier for me. I like the word growing organically. And it's something that's been really difficult for me. But I find that that's happening more now. I had a great resistance to iridology. I could look at a book, or I could sit down, I could really study it, but it was work. And I couldn't do it for too long, and I'd put it aside, and then I'd force myself to go back to it. And towards the end of the year, with some help from Peter Brotherton and Jenny, from Perth. I spoke to them. I spoke to quite a lot of people. I really reached out to a lot of people up the Gold Coast, Linda and Corey in Brisbane, Anna up the coast, and Julie and Alan, and particularly Raymond and Andrea up the Gold Coast. I made a point. I travelled interstate just to keep my energy going and to keep it up. It's very easy to get off on our own and get lost. How Doug managed 6 years on his own, I don't know. I'm really inspired by what you did. And so I travelled around quite a lot, and when I was down in Melbourne, I finally decided to spend nearly $6,000 on a camera. And then later I learnt that there could have been another $3,000 in tax if I was caught to pay sales tax. And when I got the camera, then I was committed to iridology. And then my learning curve shot up almost perpendicular. And now I'm starting to feel some confidence in iridology. That's been a big one for me. And now, at the end of the year, there was only one group left, and there was only about 6 in that. And the great news is that they're all here. And you'll get to meet them. So I'm at Byron Bay. I was at Byron Bay. I think I'll be going back to that area. I'm not too sure. Certainly now there's a strong nucleus of people there, so if there's anyone in Byron Bay, make sure you get in touch with our people there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. You cannot teach what is given by revelation. Only from your own experience can you teach. And for many, many people, when you tell them not to be attached to outcomes, well, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? But this is one of the secrets of moving in your progressive state toward the ascension, is never be attached to outcomes. And that is something I want you just to consider and think about. Write it down, put it on your list. What do you mean by that? Not being attached to outcomes? Because we're taught daily in the world of economics, we're taught to have a goal to shoot for. We're taught you have to have a goal, and you have to have an outcome, and you have to be attached to that outcome. And we show you 1,000 different ways on how to be attached to that outcome. And stress builds up within each person because they have to have that outcome, and they're a failure if they don't make it. And this is what we're taught. And so one of the gentle things that we must learn as we follow the path of non-resistance is not being attached to outcomes. Just think about that for a while. You'll flounder around with that concept for a while until it becomes real to you. Okay? Thank you, David, very much for being our teacher. Is Kai back? Where's Kai? Kai, come up here, please. Now, we haven't had a chance to talk to Kai. We've wondered where he has been, and we'd like to know what you've been doing, sir.
Well, I've pretty much been on sabbatical up in Darwin. Yeah, not doing a lot in body electronics at all. But just trying to find myself pretty much, you know.
We've had many people leave a seminar such as this, and they go off and sit for 6 months looking at a leaf on a tree, wondering, who am I and where am I going? Is that right, Kai? And that's beautiful.
We have a term in body electronics circles. It's known as post-cranial traumatic stress disorder. Sometimes it lasts for decades.
Sometimes we never get over, do we? Okay. Thank you, Kai. Jenny Wilson. Jenny, would you come up here and tell everybody what you're doing over there in Perth?
I think I spent most of the year being attached to outcomes. It's been a fantastic year. Bob and I, for those of you who remember, my husband Bob was here with me last year, and he'll be here in another 3 weeks. We went back fired up and ready to teach, which we started to do, and we've had 3 or 4 seminars, which we felt were quite successful. And I think Marion and Duncan, who are here somewhere, were it's been a massive healing crisis for me the whole year. I've been wanting to be perfectly well so that I can teach perfectly well, and I realised that had I been instantly healed and perfectly well in the beginning, I wouldn't know as much as I do now. And I realised that I'm still just on the very bottom rung, or at least grasping for it. So here I am again, and just itching to go.
Thank you, Jenny. Janine, could you come up here, please? And let us know what you have been doing in Belgium. Now, she's gone through the instructor seminars in Europe, and in Europe or where?
US.
In the U.S. And there hasn't been one in Europe, has there yet been done?
No.
Okay. So you came over to the U.S. and you had the instructor seminar in Pennsylvania, I take it?
Yes.
Okay. Would you like to share with everybody what you have been doing?
Yes, so it was summer 94. Okay, winner. So I came back. I got in contact a few years ago when I lived for 6 months in the States, so with body electronics, and I've been since I've been back. I was a Reiki master, so teaching Reiki classes, but I knew there was more, and for me, at a certain point, I couldn't help the people more because I knew Reiki is beautiful, Reiki is energy, and yes, it was like there was more. So, and I remember I brought just the 2 tapes of the healing crisis, and a year and a half later, so I just picked the tapes up again and listened to that, and that brought me in contact with Esther, went to America and came back. So, coming back being really crazy after the cranial, after quite a long, intense cranial, it's like my life didn't work anymore. So I knew Reiki was. I still give classes, but like very small amounts. And I knew I needed to start up with body electronics. So I was like, say, until Doc came back last year in April, I was still going through my cranial, so it took me about 6-7 months. But still, under that, I just started building up a little group where Bridget was one of them, and we were with about 10 people. So, but inside I thought, okay, before I left Wisconsin, we had talked and say, okay, let's get it in Europe. And Doc said, okay, let's go for it. Probably it was on his list also. And I started, and I was really looking forward at that point to that book was coming, because I started it, but I was sometimes so confused, like I said, in the middle of constant healing crisis, that I was doubting, and I didn't see immediately results with the people. So I was like very happy, very thankful that Doc was coming over, and just him being there, I was like in a constant enthusiastic state again. And we stayed in the house for 2.5 weeks, so what? It was the aches, yeah. He made the aches in the morning. So, but from that point on, it was expanding. And in July, he came back and did some free lectures. In the meantime, I've given lectures too. And then we had a group of 50 people there when Doc was coming. So now it's less, but I started up another little group of 10 people in another place of Belgium. Belgium is not so big, it's about 10.5 million people. You can drive, not like in this country, but you can drive from one place to the other in 3.5 hours. I don't think I can I can do this in Australia. So, and then yes, we have Europe with so many different countries, so and languages. So there is a lots of translation that needed to be done, and thanks to Bridget, that was really possible. And otherwise, it's it's like if people don't know the language, they feel the energy, but it is important that they really can read it, and that's what we're going to do from this point on. And more people now here from different countries in Europe. So we talked already yesterday that Doc is probably
with a family now. It's going to come back in June, and we just need to see in each country that we can stir the people up and get them enthusiastic about body electronics, because in the meantime a lot of different really good things happens and regenerations happens with people, and yes, the spiritual growth and emotional stability and sometimes instability, but just seeing the people changing in a few weeks or a few months, it's not just physical, it's the whole package. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Janine.
Something I'd like to mention here is that one of the things that made body electronics spread so quickly in Belgium and into Holland was the fact that we had Bridget there to do the translation, because we're dealing with an awful lot of people, particularly the second trip over, whose English was not anywhere near adequate enough to go to a seminar that was in English. And it was interesting because the first trip over, Bridget and a few others had already, primarily Bridget, had already translated all of the course material into Dutch and had done an outstanding job of doing that. And Janine and I were sitting around one of the last couple days I was there kind of thinking about, well, what else we could do. And Janine and I kind of got to thinking, and we said, well, it'd be really, really great if we could translate the body electronics fundamentals into Dutch. And we just kind of thought about that, and she thought, well, maybe we could ask Bridget if she'd want to do that. And a couple of days after I got back to the States, I heard from Janine, and it turned out Bridget had already started doing that without being asked. She'd just kind of done that on her own there. And what she told me is what'd you spend, about 6 hours a day for about 6 weeks straight? 5 to 6 hours a day for about 6 weeks straight, translating the entire book. And a number of other people over there, they've had a real good support team, and they've had about 6 or 7 people that have proofread the book and really done a spectacular job on that. And our next step is getting it printed over there. So
that's beautiful. Esther, would you like to come up, and you've attended the instructor seminars. We'd like you to come up and share what you've been doing.
I did to cut a complicated story short, I did the instructor seminar in 1992. Before I went to do it, there were a group of us who had wanted to, 3 of us who had wanted to go. At that time, there were 2 instructor seminars given in the 1992. One was in June, and the other one was supposed to be in October, or thereabout. I didn't have any money to do the course, but the 2 others had enough money, but they told me to wait and go with them later on. But I had this urge, this burning to go. I knew it had to be so. Anyway, I went, finished the course. While I was sitting in class, when Doc was talking, there was only one thing on my mind. How do I bring this to the others? How do I bring it I was in Holland, and I'm an African. How do I bring it first to Europe? I didn't speak the language very well, the Dutch very well. And how do I tell my people in Africa about it? When I got back with the enormous studies and the new fields and everything that goes in the instructor's course, it was so much that I felt incapable. I thought I wasn't capable. I didn't understand enough to be able to pass it on as it is, as it should be. I was very scared to make a mistake. But I had the desire to be able to tell other people about it. Then I wrote a letter to Doug. I spoke to him before then, and he said, just go ahead. I thought, nah, he's a smart boy, maybe he's just being enthusiastic. So I wrote to Dr. John Ray, and he said to me, the little that you know, share it with others. And at first I thought, well, if I had this authority, then I would go out. But when I had it, I still had something within me that I won't be able to. Benjamin came to me and said, Esther, I've been giving you a name from the States, and let's do something about this body electronics. I went like, okay, that's okay, I can hold your points, and that's all right, that's easy, you know, to hold your points, but to be able to pass it on. Then I went to Tanzania. When I got to Tanzania, that really scared me, because I wasn't comfortable just sitting in, being a diplomat's wife. You just, you're not supposed to do anything anyway, you're just supposed to be there and play the hostess. And that's not so much for me. So I was kind of torn between doing something and, well, really, I don't know. But as it turned out, there was a magazine, Health Consciousness. I gave it to a friend, and she read it, and she came and attacked me at home, and she said to me, Esther, you know this thing and you don't want to tell it. She would have been here, but I think for some reason she couldn't make it tell it. And she was so angry with me and really furious with me. And I was like, yeah, she was still angry, and she was like, you know it and you didn't want to tell it. And I was like, listen, Terry, this is heavy stuff. You have to be prepared to go into it, because I'm not sure I really get it right. But I'll tell you a little about it. And she was like, body electronic is for me. I had not even gone far to tell her much about it. But then there was one thing that was on my mind. While in the States, Doc was talking about the importance of having the bowels open, and I heard the first time about colon irrigation. And there were no colon irrigationists around where we had the course, and when I came to Holland, I was looking for one. I thought, well, the bowel has to be clear, and I have been having constipation all my life. So I thought, yes, that is something that has to be done. That's something that has to be done, and there were none around. Then I decided to look for a colon irrigation school to complete my whole education. Then I had the school, and I went to the school, finished the colon irrigation, and came back. Then I was looking at things, and I started giving other excuses that I didn't have. Well, if I have to teach here, how do I get the supplements over? Then I wrote again to Dr. Ray, said, no problem. Coconuts and everything that we had in Tanzania. So I said, now I don't have any excuse. I have to go ahead. So in my case, it had been more or less like trying to avoid it and wanting to do it and daring to do it and that kind of stuff. So I went one day to a place they call Casanova. It's a little shopping center, and when I came in, I saw it was a health shop, and I saw this lady coming in all happy, and I thought, she's pregnant. And then she was a very chummy lady, and she said, hey, can I help you, and that kind of stuff. I said, yeah, you can. I'm glad this thing is here. And she said, are you also in health? I said, yes, I am a colon irrigationist. That was safe, and I could say. Then she said, really? Well, listen, I am doing massages. I'm an aromatherapist, and that is Radka. Sutila, I'm an aromatherapist, and there are loads of people with bowel problems, so I need you here. So please do something. So I said, well, I am a diplomat's wife, and I'm not supposed to do these things. So I came home to my husband, and I said, hey, listen, Bob, one of two things. If I'm going to stay here, I have to work and do my work. He said, well, did you know you have to talk to the ambassador? I said, that's okay, but he said, well, if you have to do work, then you have to give up your diplomatic status. I said, is that all? He said, yes. I said, here's my passport. Then I wanted that freedom to be able to do something. So then the ambassador got a little bit like, because I was the only black woman among the Dutch diplomats, you know, and they were all white. So the ambassador was like, what's she talking about? It was like, oh no, yeah, that's, well, okay, she's an African, you can, give her room for that. So to them it was a kind of joke, kind of something. And it really hit them later when the results started coming out and a lot of things was happening. So then I started doing the colon irrigation, and lots of people started coming in, and of course Mr. Mkono came in, and after he did his irrigation, he asked me, he said, now what? So Esther, I want to go on. I said, now body electronics. So then we got together, then Tessa came in, then the others came in, then Radka said, I started actually the first point holding on Radka when I told her about body electronics, because being also in the health profession, then we talked about it. Then Radka got enthusiastic about the whole thing, and she started telling the others, everybody who came in knew about body electronics. So it was like, Esther, you can't escape this. So then we started having, it was like in my house, we would just come together and talk, and so body electronics started. Then Janine sent me a letter. She said, Esther, for your information, Doug is coming to Belgium. I flipped. I said, in that case, ladies, listen, you can go to Belgium because Doug is coming there. Then I wrote to Doug, and I had already mentioned to him in America that I want him to come to Holland and to Africa. He said, Esther, anytime, I'll be ready to be there. And so with John also, who would come. Anytime people are ready and there are people who will teach. So when I said, well, Doug is going, so I started playing with the idea. Then I wrote to him and he said, if there's time. Then one of the people in the group went to Belgium, and when she came back, she said, it was a very tight period. She said, Doug can come here. And Doug wrote to me and said, yes, but the time was so short because he had other things to do, and it was really, really tight. And then, well, to cut a long story short, Doug said, if we have to get this thing done, it has to be done like now. And I think Maggie, you must have gone through a hard time then. And it was all work from the team in Tanzania. It was like everybody was there. Everybody was like focused on getting Doug over. And it was loads and loads of cooperation from the group. And it's like body electronics has come to stay in Africa and in Europe. And with my brother Sama, we're intending to take it now to West Africa as well. And Sama is also setting up heavily to start in England. Peter Aziz, who was our first instructor, has started there. But with the black community, it hasn't actually caught on yet. And in Tanzania also because of the language. And we are hoping to have a translation in Swahili as well. Thank you.
Sama, now oftentimes our names are like music to our ears. Is Nukajan correct? Nukajan. Sama Nukajan has also taken the seminar, and Sama, would you come up here and share what you've been doing? Nukajam. Jam?
Unfortunately, I haven't been very active in England. But I think it's because of probably a disease in me which says if you have to do something, you must do your best to learn it properly in order to pass it on. So I think in the last 5 years, I've been doing my best. I've been having seminars with Peter Aziz. I've been to the States twice. And then something happened to me. I said, now I'm earning a salary. If I concentrate on body electronics, what do? I need to look after my family. And suddenly it came to me that if I do other things, like reflexology or some other things, then I will be able to have a source of income and still be able to do body electronics. So I went in and qualified as a reflexologist. Then once I qualified, I realized that you can't do reflexology without any nutrients. So immediately the link was John Ray's nutritional program and reflexology. So it's like I had that on my list, and I was thinking of a 5 years program, and suddenly when I came back from the States, wow, I had a property, which I'm at the moment developing to be my body electronics center and to do all this work. And actually I'm hoping that with God being willing, we should be able to have at least 5-6 seminars before December in London. And I see the possibility that we will be able to move from one town to the other in London. So if you have anybody in London who is interested in body electronics, know that the future has started and God will take care of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sama.
Hey, A topic that we'll be covering sometime a little bit later in the week will be the importance of using the list. And Sama is a man who understands the list because he's been doing it, and he knows how to plan ahead, and he knows how to get things down on his list and do one thing after another and bring things to completion. And I could tell you all sorts of stories about what he's had to do just to be able to get the time off to go to a seminar, where he's planning it about a year and a half in advance, working every Saturday to save up the vacation time. This is a man that understands the list because he does it.
Now, Louis Frick. Now, I was told that he was called the Terminator, but he corrected me. He said he's not the Terminator, he's the Inquisitor. And so Louis wants to teach body electronics, and I'd like to have Louis come up and share what he's been doing. If we could just open up the pathway over there along the side so he can...
See, we had the 1-2 team in Pennsylvania. We had Louis the Inquisitor, and we had the Saminator. Kind of the BE version of good cop, bad cop, you know. Maybe bad cop, worse cop.
Get around my fingers. My fingers around the thing and slide it up.
How's that?
A little bit further up.
You got it? Let me just hold it.
I think we got it. Thank you. I got involved in body electronics about 3 years ago when I read the Health Consciousness magazine. And for about a year, about every other word out of my mouth was Rarotonga, and finding a way to get down there, and pretty much bored my wife and everybody else stiff with it. I finally realized that just doing it myself was the most important thing, and not trying to convince anybody else to do it. And after several seminars and a couple of instructors courses a few months ago in Pennsylvania, Doug said basically what John was just saying, to Esther to go out and teach what you know. And ever since that time, it seems like the phone's kind of been ringing off the hook, and I think partly because Doug's been away and people are kind of wondering who's gonna take care of things. And so, as Doug was saying the other night, it's kind of a responsibility. It's not just something that we want to do, but it's a responsibility to carry it on. And I wasn't involved in the program 10 or 12 years ago, but it seems like there's kind of a resurgence in the States now, different for maybe the last several years. It seems like the seminars have been pretty small, and it's pretty amazing to come here and see 100 people where we've had 10, 15, or 20 people over the last 3 years of the seminars that I've been to. So it's pretty amazing to come to a group like this. But a little bit along the lines of what David was saying, it's just not being attached to outcomes, but just doing it for yourself, and finally realizing that you can sort of spread that information around, and it's kind of neat to see that that's actually starting to happen. So in the last few months, there have been a lot of phone calls and people showing a pretty tremendous interest, and so hopefully we can kind of start having groups like this back in the States and spread the word around a little bit more rapidly. But it's pretty exciting to see how things are taking off around the world.
You're in San Diego, aren't you?
Yes.
Are you familiar with Keith Juba?
No, I'm not.
Paul Juba?
No.
They have a big center for body electronics here in San Diego.
Oh, up in, I'm sorry, they're up, a little bit north there, Encinitas.
Yeah.
I've read some information about them, yeah.
Yeah, they're nice, lovely people up there.
I, in fact, contacted them when Doug was at our place, but never heard back from them.
Well, everything is perfect divine order.
They'll find out.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Lou. Tariq. I just found out from Doug that you've taken the instructor seminars also. Come on up here and share what you've been doing. This is Tariq. Is it Bayzid?
Yes.
Very good. Okay. Thank you.
I haven't been doing anything because I just did the seminar in September '95 in Chambersburg, and I came back, I started a company which will be importing our food supplements for... Just let me get a breath. Food supplements from Enzymes International, other companies what I'm looking into. And I'm here, so I just quit my job to be here, and we will see when we go back.
Thank you.
Tarek, when I was over in Belgium the second time in July, Tarek was asking me, well, should I go to the United States? Should I go to Australia? Which, when should I take it? And I said, well, if you can only take it once, definitely go to Australia. But Tarek kind of got the idea that he could maybe think big, so he decided to do it both places.
I do hope that you're looking carefully into the heart of each person as they speak. Because even though they have a smile on their face and a twinkle in their eye, there's been great personal sacrifice and in some cases tremendous changes in their lifestyle and life circumstances so that they could be here for this seminar. And hopefully you can pick up and learn from other people's experiences so that you can avoid many of the pitfalls that the rest of us have fallen into in times past. And so oftentimes we can learn our experiences vicariously from others. But it's sometimes when you're coming forth in a new area with new concepts, it's a hard struggle. And we can learn from other people's struggles and their experience. Okay, Donna? Where's Donna Hesse? Donna, you've taken the instructor seminars with Doug, haven't you? Come on up here and just share what you have been doing.
About the only thing I've been doing since his was getting ready to come here, to be honest. The first time I came in contact with him was with Bob, and Leroy.
Yes.
Okay, and I think a lot of evaluation and trying to figure out, this is the best I've seen, and I came back because it's the best I've seen, and anything that we can do for health and that. But most of what I've been doing has been just with the people that come around because I work nights, and so I don't. I did bring the seminars into the area when I first got into it.
Which area, Donna?
Detroit, Michigan. And I brought in iridology and health and human mind and body electronics. And we did that. We had some point sessions that people that really got fired up and started doing point sessions on a regular basis in Ann Arbor, which is in that area. And we ended up with a group of them. They were mostly day shifters, so I couldn't get into their meetings because basically they would have their point sessions when I was at work. So trying to figure out how to work that has been kind of a challenge. So most of the people that I've personally been working with have been family and friends that are in my own area. And we've had some interesting things happen. I found mostly with my ex-husband where we were doing things like we'd get in an accident and we just wipe off things with a Schweitzer fluid, like within 5 minutes, big lump gone. We wiped off scars. In fact, at the weekend ones, we wiped off scars with Schweitzer. Big, thick ones, we'd get them down about 90% of what they were. Just wipe them off within 5-10 minutes. These people weren't on the program yet. They were just very well nutritionally and spiritually prepared. And so those types of things. But it's been, maybe I'm one of those that hid a light under the bushel, or God's got me in the auto plant for a reason, because that's where I'm at. And I've gone into tool making now. So I don't know if that's something I'm supposed to use with this at some point or what. But so don't do what I did. Maybe that's what I'm an example for here.
Thank you, Donna. Is Paul Bennett here? Paul, would you come up here, please?
One of these years, Paul's going to start sitting up front.
He does.
Hi there.
suppose it all started around 4 years ago when I went to the Cook Islands. I heard about John Ray, and from my wife Susanna, who'd heard about him about 12 years ago. And she was insistent on getting these tapes that I was resisting to get because I realized I was under the assumption we didn't have enough money to get these tapes. I think there was about, nearly 70 tapes. And anyway, I was away working in the desert on the drilling rigs at the time, and I came back, and sure enough, there all the tapes were sitting up on the bench there. And it's my wife. So anyway, I didn't say anything. I just sat down and started listening. I said, what is this stuff? Where is this guy? Where can I meet this man? So we hunted high and low to find the people about the body electronics, and we found out Doug was left in the United States teaching seminars, and John Ray was hiding out on the Cook Islands trying to get some peace. So Susanna and I decided to bug John Ray. At first he said, no, I'm not taking anyone out here. I'm not taking anyone. And we told him that, we're from Australia and we really would like to, there's no one in Australia with this work, or just a handful of people that had gone to him in the Cook Islands, and we decided that it would be great to go to the islands instead of all the way to the States. So John accepted us, and I spent nearly 5 weeks with John and Anita, sitting by John Ray's side 6 days a week, from around 8 o'clock in the morning till sometimes up to 12 to 1 o'clock in the morning, and diligently looking at every single eye that he looked at and asking him question after question after question. I'm sure I annoyed him after some time. Then arriving back here in Australia, actually, after seeing some tremendous results, it just got my enthusiasm going tremendously in this area, and came back to Australia. We were already very busy with a couple of businesses, or a business that we'd started, and my wife was quite resistant about me starting up a little centre in my little Ravenshoe. You might have seen it on the map in the tablelands here. And I started up a little centre there next to the laundromat. It cost me $20 a week rent, pretty expensive. I charged $10 an eye reading that lasted about 3 hours. I didn't care about any of the money side of it. I was more interested in sharing with the stuff with the people and learning more about the eyes. Susanna didn't like that too much because I spent a lot of time out there doing that. I became so busy that I had to close down my little centre there and just start operating from home so I could get a little bit of work done at home at the same time. And before long, actually in the first month, I think I spoke to John Ray about sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. Some of the healing crises people were going into were quite tremendous. People with strokes that were no longer showing any signs of their strokes, and even cataract, a few people with cataracts, serious pancreatic conditions. It just went on, and everyone was just getting blown out, including myself. A lot of these things I'd heard about, but I'd never actually seen them. And then I decided to do a free talk in Atherton, just to share it and see if we can get enough people that are interested in it, apart from in my little local area. And I think we had around about 130 people there, and it was in a tiny little room, and everyone was hanging their heads in through the windows. There was kids running all through the whole place. It was a real hillbilly event, which was really nice to see. Eventually we got enough people up there to do a 3-weekend seminar, and John came over and we sponsored him and set up a nice little place there. I think we had around about 140 people at our Cairns weekend seminars, which was great. And it just went from there.
We had a huge lecture down there in Cairns at that time. Remember the hotel?
Yeah, we were at the Sheraton there, and I think we had nearly 500 people at the lecture down there at the Sheraton one night. That was another quite a big event. And from there, I asked John. I said, "Look, there's people. I come from Western Australia originally, and I was over there, and I did a couple of free talks, and the people were just jumped on it, like I was inundated with consultations and just kept going, and I thought, wow, I can't keep up with this, So I said, look, I gave John Raving, I said, look, we got enough people over here to do a 3-weekend seminar and then instructor seminar. I want you to come over. And he said, no, Paul, you're ready. I said, what? He said, well, you're ready to teach them. I said, what? At that stage, I hadn't even done an official 3-weekend seminar, but I'd spent 5 weeks with John and a little bit of extra time later on. But so we went ahead with those weekend seminars over there, and this is where Bob and Jenny sponsored us, and it went really well. And we later on did a little bit of work up in Calbarrow, which is a little north. Got a huge response there. Once again, inundated with eye readings wherever we seem to go. There was pretty close to 20 people, wasn't there? Oh, only about 9. Okay, well, it's amazing how one gets away on you. Yeah. Oh, there's a lot of interest then. So since in 3 years, I think that I've personally done it, nearly 3,500 eye readings in 4 years. I've just, every time I go somewhere, I went down to the Sydney and just had about 300 eye readings to do there in about nearly 2.5 weeks. I was just loaded up, as well as doing the instructor seminars, and once again at the Gold Coast, just inundated with a couple of hundred eye readings there. I just couldn't keep up with it, so I said, we've got to have an instructor seminar. John, when are you coming back? I can't do this. He's just holding off, and the phones were just ringing all day and all night, and Susanna, she was getting really mad because she couldn't sleep, and so I said, well, I will take the phone off the hook on one room, and I'll go and sleep in the other room with the other telephone, which is what I did, because there was just so many phone calls of all the people that were having healing crisis, and please, but people that are having heart attacks on the telephone. You think, well, what do I know? What do we do? And so and they're all by themselves, and they're just they're on the telephone. They're actually going back into reliving it. So it's pretty hard to do something like that yourself. I think you actually met the guy. We won't mention any names here. Anyway, I recommended him to take some cayenne pepper, which I just finished reading an article on it, and that was the only thing. He was by himself, and sure enough, balanced him out nicely. But anyway, it's been a long journey, and my healing crisis started already this year, about a week before I actually started in here. And there's been many times that I've been humbled by some of the experiences through the body electronics field. And I welcome you all here to burn your fingers off.
Now, Paul, what's the one thing that you have learned from your experiences as a teaching tool right now? What advice could you give this body of people? What's the one thing that you have really learned the hard way that you could now teach from experience?
I would say that one of my most valuable lessons I've learned over the period of time with the body electronics, particularly this time, and that's to follow your truth. Follow your heart. Come from the truth. Move away from the mental stuff and into the truth.
Thank you, sir. Now, we have a celebrity with us that very few of you know anything about. Jim Geither, would you come up here, please? This man is one of the few men that I know who can totally immerse himself in a shallow stream by losing his spectacles in the process. That's one of the things that happened over in Maui. Anyway, Jim, would you like to share with everybody what's been going on up in your neck of the woods?
Okay. It wasn't my fault for the stream. I actually, it rained the night before, and it was too big, and I didn't think it was that deep. Actually, that's an interesting story, because I'm kind of a to some extent, a compulsive guy, and I'm kind of a compulsive guy. And for the VNC in Maui, I think we started at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. I would always be there right at 8 o'clock in the morning. Had to be there at 8 o'clock in the morning. So I think one day, the only day that I wasn't there, John looked around and said, "Where's Jim? He must be dead if he's not here." So I was pretty close, but I got across the stream anyway, and I'm still alive here. Yeah, you and Mark Milberg, too. Yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah, we had kind of a human chain across the stream because any one guy would have gotten swept away, I think. It was kind of interesting, very interesting. I got a little different story, and I don't work in an auto factory, and I haven't been out teaching the program either. I'll just kind of tell you where I'm at, because I think we all have different stories out here, and I'm not sure if all of our paths are the same or should be the same or whatever. I studied with John Ray for a couple of years, and then went to the VNC in February 1986. And had a really good time, burned off a lot of stuff, really enjoyed myself. I think my first day there, something happened, I forgot exactly what it was, and I kind of sat there and kind of felt all this strange vibration come